you know they might not really be available. Well, hey there, welcome back. Hey, are you available for this podcast? Well, of course you are. You're listening to it, right? Or are you? Let's talk about this whole concept. I've talked about time, energy, and resources so much you can pretty much recite that. What I'm about to talk about is one of those things that when we look at it in its native situation, it may seem that I'm just being overly nuanced, but when we transfer it to a different situation, it becomes blatantly obvious. And I love that. If you work in corporate America and you have to pull someone from another team or department or what have you, and you're like, hey, are you available at 3:30 for just a half-hour meeting? And they say, sure. And so then they show up in the conference room or even, God forbid, on some sort of video call. They're available, right? Well, their time is available. But is their energy? And this is the nuanced part. Because you may say, well, yeah, I met with Mike and Sarah from HR, and they were available from 3:30 to 4, and we talked about whatever it is we talked about. But if you find that there wasn't a lot of retention, or there was just a lot of nodding, or if it's a video call, as you may be very well, unfortunately, aware of, if their face suddenly lights up with white or changes, or you can see things in their glasses, then you know they might not really be available. And you know what I'm talking about. Their energy is going somewhere else, or it's focused somewhere else, or they may actually be in a meeting with you. But because Sarah has an issue going on at home, her mind may be elsewhere. And if her mind is elsewhere, her energy is elsewhere. Let's make it even less nuanced. If you're teaching a class of 10 individuals, say a seminar, or you're giving a talk or what have you, say it's a one hour situation, whether it's a workshop or a class or something. Everyone who shows up at 10 a.m. for the 10 to 11 class is available, right? They're spending their time with you. Do you see how I paused there when the next word was going to show up? If people are fidgeting or looking at something else, or they have their phones out, well, they may actually not be all that available for you. And it can be very frustrating as a speaker or a teacher that your students aren't actually available for you. They're physically there, they're spending their time with you, but their energy is somewhere else. Or their energy is being siphoned off by something else, or they can't seem to focus their energy on you. Obviously, if this same issue is affecting the actual teacher, then it can be very clear to the students that this person, they're just not all that interesting to listen to. They're just, I don't get what she's saying, you would say. I'm trying, but, she's not all that available because she's focused on something else. This concept doesn't just apply to your work life. And as you know, with time, energy, and resources, and most if not all of the concepts we talk about, it applies to you as the whole. And part of the whole is your non-work life. So if you're available for your spouse, you're sitting in the same room for 2 hours, that's being available, right? But if you're staring at your phone, or the time that you want to spend together watching a movie or talking, or even sort of having that quiet, we're just existing together time, is always with you with your laptop open. And every time he or she asks you a question, you go, wait, what? And you have to switch gears from what you're actually doing, then you're not really available for them. You're available for whatever it is that you're doing. If you guys are playing a video game together or something, then you're usually intensely available for the game, which means, in fact, you're available for each other. This availability affects everyone in your life, including someone who's always with you. You. How often are you available for yourself? Oh my God, is this like some weirdly esoteric concept, or does that make immediate sense to you? Well, you may ask, well, how can I not be available for myself? I have free will, and I decide I'm going to work on work or play or this or that, whatever it is I'm doing, I'm available for. Yeah, but that's not how life works. You may commit to being available for work, but you're just not there. Your brain is somewhere else, especially people who go on vacation. You know what it's like a couple days before vacation. They're already there mentally, right? Or someone who has trouble at home, or someone who brings their work home with them. They don't decompress from work. And I talked about this many years ago when we went through the lockdowns and all that fun stuff, on how the disadvantage of someone who works at home is that it takes them a microsecond to work from their home office into the kitchen, into the rest of their house, as opposed to someone who has a drive home. And the drive home is usually the decompression procedure. So if you don't get the decompression, or you don't participate in it, or you don't actively do it, you may come home and you're still at work. You're still there. You're still on. But back to you. Again, you may think, well, I'm always available for myself because I choose to do this, that, or the other thing. Except we don't choose to do this, that, or the other thing. How much of our lives, realistically, in a normal life, is really you doing exactly what you want to do at every single moment? I would submit to you that even the most planned out, even the most prestigious life that you could live would still include things that you hadn't really planned on doing. I mean, sometimes you spill something. Sometimes you get an emergency call from your kids or your spouse or what have you. There's an accident, whatever it is. At some moment, you may not be doing exactly what you want to do. In fact, it's that lack of availability that is the cause of a lot of accidents. People weren't there. They weren't available to pay attention and drive. They're fiddling with their radio, or they are messing with their phone, or they're texting while they're driving, or they're focused on something else. And then boom, they're in an accident. You don't get into an accident per se at home because you weren't listening to your husband, but it does eventually get noticeable when you always have to say, huh? Yeah, that sounds great. Every single time there's a conversation. And let's go back to ourselves. Being available for yourself means you truly take a breath and say, what is it that I want to do right now? What is it that I should do? What is it that I need to do? What would make me happy? And we can talk all about the monsters and the unicorns if you're familiar with my book Because, which just came out, thank you. And that how they pull you in different directions all the time. The pleasure of completing a project, or the pain of thinking about being late, or how you have to deal with your boss, can very much make you not available for your spouse and yourself. You may decide to do something fun and your brain is somewhere else. There are ways to get yourself to be more available for yourself. But it comes down to having a certain level of awareness and self-control. And I guess that's probably what most of these podcast episodes boil down to. The awareness first, and then the control of working with what we just became aware of. There's a chapter in Because that I use magnets as an analogy of the pushing back towards the monsters and unicorns in your life. And that if you push them too far, you're just sort of floundering and existing. And if you let them slam together, there is none of this between space in which we can kind of take a breather, because all we're doing is reacting between seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. And we're just like a robot. We're always on, we're always doing that stuff. And there's never any space to grow or to put our heads up and go, wait, what's going on in my life? What is this? What do I really want? And you have to do that first before you even say, okay, I'm just going to be available for myself. You have to kind of put your head up and go, what am I doing here? And you have to be available for you first, and then available for everything else in your life. So first of all, thank you for being available for this episode. And if you truly are available for these episodes, meaning you are committing energy to it, and you can commit all the brain power energy you want while you're cutting the grass or emptying the dishwasher. It's two different brain systems. And I covered that in another episode. But in doing so, you will get the very most out of these episodes. And I can tell, because the people who communicate with me, the people who have the comments, the people who actually reach out to me, or even people that I happen to know that said, hey, I caught your last episode. Those are people that made themselves available for the podcast. And if they make themselves available for the podcast, I'm pretty sure they make themselves available for themselves. I hope you do too. I hope you enjoyed this. And as always, you're important and I appreciate you. Thank you.
Well, I just wanna be happy. How to get there? Glad that you asked me. I think it's different for everyone. Some of us need work, others need fun. Some of us need purpose to overcome. But try to do what you love when it's said and done. Cause there's so many differences in each of us. Trust your gut, it can show you what you want. Living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days.
I want to announce that my new book, my 10th, is out. It's called Because, the fundamental psychological building blocks that enable you to, or prevent you from, accomplishing anything, everything, and nothing. Check it out on Amazon. It's only $9.99.